Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillah wa rabbil alameen. As-salatu salam ala rasulillahi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah. Ahlan salim bikum, my dear brothers and sisters, wherever you may be, short notice. I'm very good at that now. And I wanted to delve into this topic, those who seen the marquee, about the black man, the African black man, leaving the United States or the Caribbean or wherever he's at to enter Africa. And what should he do if he's a single man? And should he marry an African woman, a local woman where he's staying? Or should he go and seek out an African American woman or a Caribbean African woman for marriage? And this is a very sensitive topic because it's at a time now where, especially the United States, where the dwindling pool for marriage, especially for our sisters, is getting slimmer by the day. And this has caused a backlash and stuff like this. And we have a problem that is brewing because now we have a lot of brothers coming on the continent. They don't have wives. Okay, bottom line, especially if they're Muslim or there's special rules. I'll get into that here in a bit. So let me give you my felicitations. Assalamu alaikum rahmatullahi barakatuh lil ikhwani ikhwati fi din wa salamu ala mani taba huda lil ikhwani wa ikhwati fi Africa, Europa, America, Caribbean wa kulli makan. Okay, brothers and sisters, when I look at this topic, I've seen some of this mentioned in other arenas on YouTube, and I can't present the case as they presented it because it's I'm a Muslim, and plus I'm an older man, I'm an elder and whatnot. So I'm gonna look at it from another perspective. But let's go into something, and we got to go in bare essence here. We have a black man. Let's say we have three brothers, African American. Say they coming out of New York City. One's Muslim, one's Hebrew, one is Christian. Now they've had enough of Brooklyn. They've had enough of Bed-Stuy. They've had enough of Harlem and the discrimination and whatnot. So they decide now to go to the United States. The problem that we have is that many of our brothers who are Christians are not following what Jesus alayhi salatu wasalam has ordered us to follow. The Hebrews are not following the Torah according as Moses has advised, and according to the halakha, the Sharia of the Torah. The Muslims are not following the Sharia law, which they are commanded to follow. So they go over to the United States with the weakness in their faith. And this causes added problems. Inside the United States, there's not a lot of eligible Hebrew sisters for our brothers. There are not a lot of eligible Black African Muslim women for our brothers inside the United States. And our Christian brothers have a slim pool because of what has happened. If you look at YouTube now, it's shocking what you see some of the sisters and what they are saying. It is absolutely astonishing, to be honest. Excuse me, brothers and sisters, I'm trying to figure out something here. What's going on here? Yeah, okay. I don't see, it don't seem like it's working here in YouTube. What's going on here? If this was not, yes, it's not working. I see it's not working here in YouTube, brothers and sisters. If anybody is looking, it's like it's frozen or something. It's very strange. Very, very strange. Oh, boy. That's bad. That's very bad. There's people waiting too. I don't know what's happening. If it is showing live. Please tell me. Because it should have went on by now. Okay, brothers and sisters. Boy, this is really something. Boy, I don't know what has happened in YouTube. Okay. So I get back to this. So we're not following according to what we believe as Muslims, Christians, and Jews. And this is a big problem. I was talking about YouTube. We now have African American sisters, some very attractive African American sisters, have made the bar so high, the majority of us cannot marry them. Cannot. Some say they want the man to have 300,000, make it 300,000 per year. Some put other astronomical financial things that none of us hardly can meet. And others are stressing some other aspects, even lessening their pull for marriage and making it very difficult. Where some of the sisters on this discussion I saw in YouTube was what can I say? They didn't want men, okay, who were maybe they were working in the sanitation department but making good money. They're managers, general managers, planners, whatever. They didn't want men, managers of restaurants or McDonald's or some other Denny's or something making very, very good money. They didn't want school teachers or anything like this. Some said they didn't even want a professor. They want some man making 300,000, 200,000. They didn't specify, they said these certain jobs. So they leave it open. How many of us making 300,000 except people who are involved in criminal activity who make that and then some. But the rank and file brother is not eligible to marry these sisters. So with that backdrop, the brother decides to go to he goes into the African continent. And so he looks at it from the standpoint, okay, I don't know what I'm going to do. I want to go to Africa. I've had enough United States. I got money saved up. I'm going to move to the Gambia. I'm going to move to Morocco. I'm going to move to Tanzania, wherever the place may be. Is it essential to becoming African? He must marry an African woman. We must ask that question. And what are the benefits to it? What are the demerits of it? Would the right African woman be more receptive to his leadership? Those are valuable questions, brothers and sisters, that should be asked. And so when we look at the first one, should he marry an African woman? I say yes and no. According to his particular strength as a Black man and an African man. What are the benefits of it? If you move to an African country, who's better than your wife who's an African woman, a Gambian woman, or a Moroccan woman, or Egyptian woman, or a Sudanese woman, whomever she may be, Nigerian woman, or Tanzanian woman? They know the ins and outs of their country. They speak perhaps the dialect or whatever situation is. They understand the government. They understand the processes that have to be going. It helps to get the right, essential things for him to adapt. Whereas you go into, say, Ghana, and you meet an African American woman. She might have been there 10 years. She may know the same things per se as her African Ghanaian sister. But she has some things about her that she has not left out since the United States. See? So what are the merits of it? The merits of it is if your African wife speaks very little English, or her English command is very little and she doesn't understand you very well, that is a demerit in the sense that it makes it difficult for you, because anyway, you should try to learn the language that you when you move to Tanzania, you should try to learn Kiswahili. You should. And if you come to Morocco, you should learn Arabic. You should. You know, and in Ghana and place like that, you should understand the culture. Because if you marry a brother from a sister from Kumasi, you need to understand what's happening there. Okay, you need to be well aware of the culture. See, so those are the things. Would the right African woman be more receptive to his leadership? This is a big question and sensitive question. We know in the United States, we have, this goes round and around. We know what has happened to many of our sisters where they have had to take the leadership because the brothers have failed in one way or the other. Well, many of them have not learned to turn that off. So when they do get a brother who can take the leadership, they in the process, they buck heads as though it's two men inside the house, and they can be receptive. And just like these four ladies said on their program, they said they're not receptive to black man leadership inside the house. So this is, you could say, a microcosm, but I've heard this my 50 years in the United States. I heard the same thing over and over again. They say they can, but essentially they cannot. In Africa, the African woman is already built for this, and she understands that the head of the family is the man. In the United States, our sisters say, yes, he's eligible to do that, but he has to specify certain things that I want. Then I will be more respectful for him. That's not the conditions that the African woman puts on him. Meaning, again, essentially, hey, something happens in LA, he gets laid off. Now his wife goes after him big time, says, you know what, I'm going to leave you, I'm going to do this. You can't tell me what to do. I'm going to go up to sisters. I'm going to go out with this guy. I'm going to come back in 4 days. You can't say nothing to me. We have these situations happening. Okay, let's be honest. We have those situations that's going on a lot. Okay, I don't see anything. Boy, that is really, really puzzling. And what happened to my YouTube teleclass? I don't understand what is going on. So with that problem, we have to look at the brother, and he comes to the Gambia. He sees an attractive Gambian woman, very mild-mannered, already a homemaker. You feel the sense that she is more receptive to his leadership. The brother hasn't seen anything like this in the States, and he marries her. This is the testimony that we hear many brothers say when they come here on the continent. Is it an indictment against our sisters in the United States? In some ways it is. And then we do have sisters who come to the Gambia. We have sisters who come to the Gambia, to Ghana. I was in Ghana in 2002. And I remember what I saw. I was shocked. I've talked about this many times. I saw sisters, African-American sisters, they were just not conducive for marriage. They just weren't. They left. They did not leave the hood mentality, loudness, the pseudo manlyhood that they exhibited. The Ghanaian men won't touch them, except they would sleep with them just for the experience. But other than that, they wouldn't take them home to mama, so to speak. See, so I saw that. And we've heard the same thing that's happening. I'll get into a little bit of that as well. Can we say from the current events that African American and African Caribbean women are less likely to be Africanized? That's an answer, I believe, yes. When our sisters come over, as a general rule, they will not leave the mentality of the United States back there. They bring it to the continent. And this is what makes them so undesirable. Not only African Americans say this, you see the native local men say the same thing. And you see this written, and even on their talk shows, they talk about the same thing. the African local woman sees her too. And they talk about this same situation. Our sisters are not listening to that. Inside United States, Farrakhan, leader of Nation of Islam, his daughter made a stinging indictment against the African American women she had classes trying to recondition them. He said, why your men are leaving you? Because this is the way you're acting. You're acting more like a man, like a pseudo man. You want to be in charge over him. You want to be, boss over him. Very interesting speech she gave. And there's some other sisters talking about the same thing, trying to re-educate our sisters in the United States to put down their shield and whatnot, to now start to gain that femininity, that African femininity that we were noted for. But many cannot do it. They don't want to do it. And once they come on the continent, you would think that they say, okay, I'm going to be Gambian. They don't. You'll see them in packs. They stay together. And a lot of times they have nothing to do with any Africans, local men or women. I saw this. And there's other brothers who attest to this fact too. And it's wrong. But on the same side, I'm seeing African-American brothers come to Africa and they have a pick of the litter, so to speak, of women. But their intentions are not honorable. And they go and they weed out certain types of African sisters to sleep with them, maybe 2, 3, 4 in the 3 months he's there. Some end up being pregnant and they leave. They make full promises and so forth and so on. Yes, perhaps the girl's wrong to be duped into the situation, but we're human beings. The African woman to a degree is naive. She's not been schooled in the hood of Compton. She has been schooled in the hood of Bedford-Stuy in New York, okay, or Brooklyn. She hasn't been, educated in St. Louis, Missouri. She hasn't been educated that way. So she doesn't know, she knows things first value because she's an African woman. They're not accustomed to that. So they're doped into situations. So we see this other aspect of that too, and it's wrong. So why is that? As a general rule, can we say that the African men on the continent are likely to marry them? No, they're not likely. You see this all over the place. You hear the same thing. I don't care if it's the Zambia. I don't care if it's Rwanda. I don't care if it's Tanzania. When you ask them about the marriage to an African-American woman, you see them cringe because the reputation that's been established by them on the continent is not good. It's worse than a white female, a Tubab woman. And I'm telling you the facts as it is. This hurts the honorable African-American woman or Caribbean woman who comes to the States because already when they know you're from the United States, they know African-American, they already are against you because of your sisters who preceded you. And this is really, really a shame. Do African women in general find the current crop of African American and African Caribbean brothers living in the continent marriageable? Yes, they do. You see and hear this same thing. I don't care if you go to Egypt. I don't care if you go to Libya. I don't care if you go to Algeria or Morocco to the north and into the Savannah region. You hear the same thing. Brothers are coming and having easy time, easier to find wives essentially in the continent than it is in the United States. And African women across the board, Kenya, Tanzania, Uganda, Ghana, the Gambia, Morocco, all the places, South Africa, Zimbabwe, you'll find he's African American, the sisters go around him and they look for marriage. Now, of course, some will say, well, because he has money, he has this or that. Well, what woman that's a criteria that you want a man who can sustain you. You don't want a man who cannot sustain you, especially on the continent, because there's no welfare system and so forth and so on. So she wants a man who can take care of the family and have children, because the African woman is built for the family and she's built for having children and taking care of her husband. That's the difference. Inside the United States, it's not the same. My generation didn't train our sisters to be in this fashion. And that's the truth. They just didn't. Okay. And so this is a problem that that we should, essentially look into, because brothers, you come to the continent, and you expect, you want something. You should be honest. You have the means, and you meet these sisters, and I hear the same thing every time. You meet a sister, and she is feminine. Her talking, her mannerisms. She's not mannish. She's not all in your face. She's not phony. Now, I'm not saying they don't have that. Yes, they do. They have the spinster sisters here on the continent too, who look after for black men who have money so they can take their money from them. Okay, we know that. We have that. It's growing. It's starting to grow because of the poorness. They figure that the brothers are easy targets, so they come onto them, especially the most beautiful ones, come onto them so they can take money from them. We have that, but that's a still small percentage. But as a general rule, the brothers coming here, they have it. You see brothers married Egyptian girls. They're marrying Tanzanian women, Uganda women, Kenyan. I mean, you go across the board. Brothers are having easy time to find wives. And again, I ask you, why is it easier for him to find a wife here on the continent than it is back in New York? Why is that? What is stopping the African-American woman from being sought out for marriage in Africa? As I said, when the African-American woman comes over, we have honorable sisters come here, and some have adapted. I've seen their programs. They have, men want to marry with them. I'm not talking about the sisters who the brothers want only to sleep with them. They don't want to offer them marriage. They just want the experience, okay, and use them for that. But I'm talking about sisters who are adapting to the African culture, okay? They even are now self-sufficient. They go buy their own place, and they begin to develop their own businesses and so forth and so on. Brothers come to them for marriage and so forth and so on. Some of say we have 50 of these sisters, 25% of them are African already. They're not default Africans. They're African. The others are still African Americans, and they're not conducive yet for marriage because the brothers look at them and they see them as tubab, and they're not conducive for marriage. They still have the rough edges of America on them. They're not feminine enough, so the brothers walk away from them. The other 25, yes, they gravitate to them. They see the sister, she's dressed in the native dress of Ghana or the Gambia or Morocco, whatever the situation may be. They see she's feminine, that she's even picking up the language. You see her even cooking the meals of the local meals, okay? You see that. So the brothers gravitate to want to marry with them. And we have sisters who have married very easily here as well. See, so then we look at the other aspects of it. Why are they being overlooked? As I specify, because as long as they are considered to be tubab black women, they're going to be overlooked. So which would establish a peaceful coexistence in the African household? At this time, in this stage, is the African woman, because she's built for that. Our sisters are not, as a general rule. And it's hard for them to turn off what has happened to them in the United States, okay? All of the stuff for centuries is on their shoulders. When they come to the United States, no fault to them, but they have not learned to turn that off and to remove it from themselves. So they bring it into the Gambia, they bring it into Ghana, they bring it in Cote d'Ivoire. And the brothers here are not used to kind of sisters like that. They're not, because here everything is, in Africa, it's a slower pace. And the sisters are according to the pace of the land and the heartbeat. The women are more feminine and they're more home orientated. So when the brothers see this sister come in, she's loud. She's very aggressive. She's mannish. She's not feminine. Nothing about her is feminine. Her voice is even mannish. The brothers turn off. I've heard this 1,000 times. How many times I've been asked, hey man, why are your sisters over in the United States this way? Why are they that way? I see them down the street. Why they're I hear this many times. I don't know how to answer. I said, you got to understand what has happened inside the United States. It's turned our sisters, some of them, into monsters. Bottom line, and they have not been able to turn this off. And you have not met the ones who are eligible, who are grounded sisters, because we have them in Mississippi and Alabama, and Georgia and Arkansas. There's many sisters down there. I know brothers that went out from LA, married to sisters in the South. They found them to be totally different than the sisters they encounter in LA or in Compton. See, I've seen that aspect as well. The African American women living in Africa or the local African woman, how about the children being born in Africa from the African American father? Now, I'm going to tell you something. There's one blogger, I can't think the sister's name. They came over together and they both, and one, I think they had one or two children or something in Ghana. But all their children were speaking, if I'm not mistaken, I think they were speaking Fanti. I can't remember. They had been taught that because they were still young, so it's easy for them to pick up the language. And they've adapted. They're Ghanaians. They're Ghanaians now. They're not, African Americans. They're Ghanaians. See, we have those sisters are like this. And there's another sister too. I have a deep respect for. Her whole family came, but they have, 7 children. I can't recall. Big family. And she and her and these other sisters, I think it was in Gambia, they got around her because she was receptive to it. They began to teach her the African ways, how to cook, how to manage. It's not to say that she didn't know how, but they was in there now. She's in Africa. She was receptive to that. And she said that she keeps these sisters around her to keep her grounded. She doesn't go and hang around with many of the sisters that came from the States because they'll try to get her from that. She said this. I didn't say it. She even said that. She said, no, because I know they'll take me and say, look, hey, why are you doing this? Hey, I don't care if we're here. This way you treat him. See, she missed that. But she keeps these Ghanaian sisters, these Gambian sisters around her to keep her grounded. And her children speak, I can't remember if it was Wolof or whatever. Her children now speak that language. They have one more husband, and that child is being raised there in the Gambia as a Gambian. See, so we have those sisters. But as a general rule, the brother is better off having an African woman in this time. And he especially have children because the African woman is already geared, conditioned for this. And many of us don't have time and the patience to have an African American woman come, and you have to have fist fights with her. You have to have an extreme lot of patience and whatnot. And and you're inside African, you're in Africa now. The Africans are not going to understand your relationship with a woman like this. They're going to say, hey, brother, why are you going to be tussling in the face? You come over here and I got my sister. She's not like this. Why don't you trash her? I've heard that too. Because I've seen brothers who married to sisters who did come there and they had a hell of a time. They just did not want to they cannot leave what's happened to them back in the United States. And African brothers walked up there to him and said, hey, brother, man, why are you going to do that? We got African sisters here to marry in all that. And brothers divorced and they marry local women. And now we have backlashes I see on YouTube now where we have conflicts going on. Nigerian women versus African American women. I see Gambian, not Gambian, but Ghanaian African women are fighting African American women because African American women are trashing them, saying, well, why you take our man? And one Ghanaian sister said, she said, if you were doing right, your men wouldn't be here, or if they did come, they would be coming with you. There's been all this banter going back and forth because I know they don't have many prospects. And when they see these brothers leave, they can't stand it. But on the same token, they themselves want to hold on to certain traditions. And so when you ask the brother, you want to give him lemon, you want to give him bitter vinegar for his meal. And the African woman wants to give him papaya and pineapple. So which one do you think he's going to gravitate to? And see, many of our sisters don't understand that. He said, well, look, this is why we know it. This is why we treat our man. And this is a problem. And it's got to be rectified for the benefit of our sisters, especially those who come over. See? And we do have sisters who have reconditioned themselves. They've been friends with the local sisters and they told them, hey, this is what we do in our house. And they see the example. They see this example in their homes. And it's easy for these sisters to adapt. About 2 years ago, we had an African-American woman who entered into the Gambia. She had chip on her shoulder from all her things, but she finally made amends after she got on TV and did a program where she broke down and cried. She said she was at fault. She said why she was alone because what she had done. She said she had good African American men back in the States, and she trashed them, all of them. She came to the Gambia. She saw African American men marrying Gambian women. So she began to trash the Gambian women on YouTube. I don't know if you guys know, but I'm not gonna mention her name. I don't have to. It's a dead issue now. And it caused a big, big ruckus because she was hurt. But she would admit it that she was not conducive for marriage. The brothers say, oh, you from LA? Oh, you from Atlanta? Oh, that's good. And they walk right past him and marry a local woman. She didn't like that. But then she began to understand why that was. And she admitted, tears came down. She said, I trashed our black men. Everyone that came near me, I trashed them. She admitted it. I destroyed them. And she cried. See, so she came and had an admission, and hopefully this sister is now African, and some brother can forgive, and brother can take her in, and she will have, a happy life. I'm hoping this happened for the sister because it took guts for her to come on YouTube to admit her faults. Not many of us do that, but she did. This is interesting. The black man in America trending lighter skinned women for marriage. We see this trend in the United States. It's getting very, very obvious. You see our movie stars, you see our athletes who are sporting. If she's not a light-skinned black woman, she's a two-bob woman, right? If she's not that, then she's a Filipina, or she's a Japanese woman, or a Korean woman. We're starting to see all of this, right? So you see a dark-skinned brother, but my complexion even darker. They sporting a mulatto type sister, or a woman who's half black and Mexican, or half black and Korean, or whatever the situation should be. We're starting to see this trend, a lot of that. And African brothers have asked me this question. They say, I see this on TV. I see basketball players, football players in America. They all have these light-skinned women. And I tried to explain to them, I said, because it's a psychological thing to a degree. Because even when I was a kid, we were told that the cleanest woman, meaning all the way from head to toe, is a woman who's mulatto, okay, with straight hair and so forth. They were cleaner and better than the dark-skinned woman. The dark-skinned woman is not as clean as this woman. This has been handed down for generations, when it's not true. And then the other trend that's been propagated inside the United States is all the black men are marrying two-bob women. I gave a class on this about a year ago, maybe a little longer than that. And what happened in that regard, where we had the statistics show that 90% of black men still marry black women inside the United States. But those numbers are starting to dwindle now. They're starting to go down. Before it was 96%. Now it's 90%, which is about 2015. It may be lower than that now. And the still stigma of finding darker skinned sisters less attractive. A lot of this has to do with attitudes. Okay, we know this because a man is turned off. A man is as my teacher told me in Ghana years ago, he said, it's man's nature to eat and mate. Listen to what he said. He said, it's man's nature to eat and mate. So he's going to think in a lot of ways about his food and about his woman in the bedroom, right? When he has encountered a woman who has testicles just as big as his, he's not going to be conducive for her. He's not going to have that. And he finds darker skinned women to be less attractive, especially if their mouths are very vulgar. And we have light skinned women too who are doing the same thing. But it's been suggested by some scientists that for some reason our lighter skinned sisters, because they have a harder time being accepted as African Americans, tend to go to the other side and be more feminine. And brothers are picking them up more so than they do our darker skinned sisters. This is some of the stuff that's been bantered around. But here's the interesting thing about that. However, on the continent, brothers are trending with sisters sometimes 2 shades darker than themselves. You see my point? They're there in LA, they're there in Mississippi, they're there in Atlanta, the ATL. they're there in Bed-Stuy or Brooklyn, or they're there in Maryland. They won't have nothing to do with a dark-skinned sister. But then they come to they come here on the continent, they marry sisters many times 2 shades, 3 shades darker than themselves. See, why is that? Why do we have this discrepancy? Again, I say to you, it's the attitude. It is the attitude, brothers and sisters. Even his brothers back in the United States, if the sister's attitude is right and her femininity is right, he sees the thing, as my teacher told me there in Ghana, he said, the man's nature is to eat and mate. He sees that she's going to satisfy his stomach. He sees the femininity in her, and he's going to say, she's going to satisfy me also in the bedroom. And most men are turned off by, if he goes to a woman who has just her testicles as big as his. That's not going to work. And if it does, it is in a divorce. And why many scientists are saying, sisters are saying the same thing too. Many sisters, and I used to hear this in my generation and my dad's generation, talking about the sisters saying many of them are only good enough to sleep with, but they're not good enough to marry. That's a stinging indictment. That's got to change. See, it's got to change. So the brothers are finding them attractive on the continent. You'll see an African American, you'll see a sister either dark as he is or darker than him. You see that. But back in the States, he didn't marry that. He wouldn't marry that. See, he would marry a dark-skinned sister. So we see that. So we see the exact opposite in America. They won't have nothing to do with the dark-skinned woman, but they come over here to Tanzania and they marry a girl that's darker than them. It's very interesting phenomena. With a sister who is the same shade as her African sister, you see that. You have a Gambian woman, very dark complected, and you have an African American sister, very dark complected. The brother comes in between to look at them. He hears them talking. He sees how they are. He begins to talk to them in earnest. Spends 2 weeks getting to know. He finds the African American woman dark-skinned, unattractive. Many African American women say he don't like me because of my dark skin. Wait a minute, sisters. He's marrying a Ghanaian or Gambian woman who's 2 times darker than you. So it's not your color. See, it's not your color. It's the attitude. But many sisters are now writing, like there's an article I saw where they had some sister, she was in tears because she said that that the brothers don't want her because of her dark skin. That's not the case. And then when I saw the picture of her, she had her hair dyed blonde and she had it really, short cropped and whatnot like that. But she's very, very dark skinned. It didn't look good. She had blonde, she dyed her hair blonde and she's very, very dark skinned. And when you listen to her words, and I can imagine that she's not very feminine. And she was chiding the brothers for not marrying dark skinned women. But I didn't enter the fray into it. I just let the lady say what she had to say. But I wanted to say, hey, sister, they're coming over here. They're marrying girls your shade and darker. So it's not this color of the skin. It's the attitude. That's important. Here's the interesting fact. The Tubab woman and the African-American woman are far more less likely to find marriage in Africa, even her, because the brothers here don't traditionally marry the Tubab. They don't. Especially the Fulani, my community, they just don't. Again, yes, the younger brothers who play games, they see the European woman come over, they sleep with her for 2 or 3 weeks, but they will not take her to mama. Very few. That's a small percentage that marry the Tubab woman. So the African-American woman and the Tubab woman are almost in the same category when they come here on the continent. Both are not desired as a general rule. Or the sex games, yes. For that, yes, but not for marriage. But are more likely to gain sexual partners. Yes, you'll find the young brothers to say, hey, hey, sister, hey, hey, let's hang out together for 2 or 3 weeks. Let's go here, for the sexual conquest. That's it. But the American black man, he can have both. We see that. The American black man comes into the Gambia, he comes into Ghana, he comes into Nigeria. He only wants to have a good time. he has an easy pick. Many sisters are waiting for that. If he's the other type of brother that wants marriage, it's easy for him to have that as well. A growing trend with Nigerian women and African-American women. Nigerian men are starting to marry African-American women. This is an interesting phenomenon. But if you notice these African-American women, you see them, especially on Nigerian stations, because and some of the publications, okay, like NERA and something like this, you see those sisters. They're not the ones I've been talking about here. These sisters, they're dark and they're attractive, but they have a lot of African in them already, and the brothers see that. And they marry with them. They're not marrying the hoodwink woman or the one talking a lot of crap and having Shar evil on her face. No, he's marrying those who are already close to being a full-fledged African woman, but they're starting to marry them. And the growing phenomenon there in Nigeria, you'll see these articles. They'll tell the Nigerian men, stay away from the African-American woman. I have those articles. They're not American. These are what's here on the continent. They've been advised to stay away from the African-American women. But many of them said, no, I found my princess. I'm going to marry with her. And these sisters are grounded. They're African. They're Africanized already. And these sisters, I couldn't tell the difference. I didn't know that if I saw them on the street, I'd think they're from Nigeria. I didn't think they were from Compton, California or Los Angeles. They've already been grounded. One of the sisters has already learned to speak Igbo. Okay? I saw that. And she's already got the first child from her husband. So it's happening. But the sister has to make this transition. This is the war that goes on within our sisters inside the United States. They have a war inside themselves. What do they want to do? They said, I have my power because inside the United States, I have my home base. There, I have the command. I can do this. I can do that. I'm in control. I'm the leader inside the home. If I come to Africa, I cannot do that. I can't control the man. I can't tell him what to do. I can't do this to him. I can't talk to him this way. You see, this is the attitude. And so what happens is when they come here, they say, okay, maybe I'll change. They just cannot. And you see many of them, they're in sardine cans. You see them together. Nobody is picking them for marriage. A new brother come in, he'll join an association with them. He see them and he'll bypass them. 2 weeks later, you hear he's married a Ghanaian woman. He married a Gambian woman. We've seen this all the time. And these sisters, nobody's picking them. They have this war in them. And I've talked to some sisters honestly about this. And the sisters say to me, yes, Yahya, Sheikh Yahya, you're right. We have to change. She says, I have this war because I can't release, because I think that I'm in control. In the United States, I have this power. But it's really not power. Because the Tubab give them this since slavery. So when they come to the African continent, they feel they'll lose this power. So they've lost all femininity. And the sisters admitted this, the ones I talked to. So these sisters possess African qualities, eagerness to please their husbands and adapt the culture and language of their husbands. These sisters here who are finding husbands on the continent are doing this. They don't listen to the African-American sister when they come to them and say, hey, sister, hey, you from Bed-Stuy, New York. I am too. What are you doing? How you gonna do this with your man? Huh? You're fixing dinner for him? Are you doing this for him? You cleaning the house? You staying in the house and your husband goes to work? How are you going to do that? Why don't you do this? They don't want to listen to that. And this is happening. And some of the African-American sisters who have married African men are complaining about our sisters trying to hook them back into the American system the way things are there. And many of them don't want to deal with that. Brothers, this here is a big one. I saw a statistic that was so mind-boggling, I had to ask the question, what the hell is going on over there? There's a hideous trend, not only but the Black women, but greater among the African women than any other there in the United States. is the false paternity crime. We have sisters, I see it on YouTube. I cannot believe what's going on in the United States. Sisters are getting impregnated. She has two guys that she's been sleeping with. One brother's working good in some law firm. He's working in some factory. He's making very good money. He's a good provider. But she likes the brother in the hood who's a gangster, or he's a nothing. He just lives off women and welfare. Psychologically, she likes the sex coming from the hood that she liked from this brother that's making it, as a general manager in some law firm. So she goes to satisfy both angles. So she goes to have sexual relations with the man from the hood and get pregnant. She goes back to this brother here and say, hey, this is your baby. And now you would have explosions all over the place. Detroit, Los Angeles, Dallas, Mobile, Alabama. There was ATL in New York. All of these cases are starting to come up. And they say 67%. They say overall, generally now in this day and time, this is staggering with Black, white, Hispanic women, Asian women. Between roughly 20 to 30% of the men who have babies by American women, 30% are not even their children. Brothers and sisters, that's a staggering statistic. And this is why they're trying to introduce a DNA law. When you marry a sister, marry a white woman, Mexican woman, whoever it may be, she's an American, you need to get DNA, because they're starting to do this false paternity crime and they're getting away with it. This brother here, after another sister came to him in Detroit and told him, he said, look, your 4 kids, my brother is the father of those kids. He can't, oh no, come on now, what are you talking about? And they do DNA. And you know what his wife said to him? It's none of your business. You accepted them as your child, you continue to support them. She said, that's none of his business. I can do what I want. And he took her to court. And other cases where the brother he had the young child, 2 or 3 years old, he started looking at something and somebody come, hey brother, you better get tested. You should get tested because that's not your child. And they go get tested and they find out that's not his child. And then like on YouTube, the sister says, so what? That's my prerogative. If I want to have sexual relations with, she's married. I want to have sexual relations with this guy, I get pregnant. That's none of your business. You take care of him. That's your son. This is why our sisters have a stinging bad reputation, and the Africans are seeing these programs because of the worldwide media. And now, I think it's a Naira magazine, an article says Nigerian brothers stay away from African American women because they found 67% now. Perhaps this figure, the brothers may not be the father of those children. How about this famous case with the basketball player there in San Francisco? He now found out about his children. See, this trend is bad, and we're leading this trend. And the baby is destroyed. The lives of the real father, he's destroyed because now he doesn't know that he's the father of this child. The one who's not the father, he's destroyed because he's been loving this child. He's changed the child's diaper. He's taken this child to McDonald's. He kisses this child goodnight at night. He hugs and loves his son or daughter. And he comes get a DNA, he find out that it's not even his child. And the sisters are getting away with it. They're not being put in jail. Here in Africa, they put them in jail and make them pay restitution because we're starting to see this. And now they arrest the sister who do this, and she goes down to prison for it. There's none of this stuff like that. They have these women groups there, like in the United States, going and say, well, that's a lady's prerogative. If she wants to give it up as her business, no one should have nothing to say with it. And the man should be whoever she designates to pay for it. That this is wrong. It's not even psychologically right because the baby's destroyed. How can you ask this man to pay for a child that's not his? But the sisters are asking this. And it destroys the lives as I see here, as I show here. Which is virtually unheard of in Africa still. But we're starting to see these cases. But you know what? The courts in Africa handle these ladies who do this. There's no escape like it is back in LA for the sisters, and it's in other places. They get away with that. They get away with that there in the United States. Nothing happens to them. Here, they put them in jail. So should this be a back of a mind of all brothers? I think so. Because if the statistics are so high, if the African-American woman is coming around you and you want to marry her and you have a child, should you get checked out? I would tell my son, brother, look, son, you better go on over and get your DNA, because too many now are having sexual relations on the side over here, get pregnant, and then blaming you for it. See, so when choosing either an African sister or a Black American sister for marriage, the paternity fraud is a biggie. That is something. The brother comes over he's here in the Gambia. He's coming to Morocco, which is unheard of. We had a case like this about 3 years ago where the brother, he made a big mistake. He was weak. He had sexual relations with this one young woman. She figured she's going to get away with it. So she accused him of impregnating her. And they did a DNA test and they threw her ass in jail. See, not like over the United States. They'll throw the man in jail for arguing about the case, but they leave the woman alone. Here, they threw her in jail. So the paternity fraud is big. But let me give you something Islamically about that. Our Prophet, ﷺ, even 1400 years ago, they were doing this even at the time of the Prophet, ﷺ. One of the conditions when the woman came into Islam is she had to make a pledge that she would not falsely accuse with the paternity fraud by claiming that one man's the father when she knew the other one. That was one of the conditions when she swore her allegiance to Islam, that she could not do that. Because even then, the sisters are doing that. So it's been going on for a long time. Now it's to the forefront because brothers have been taken to the cleaners. Their savings gone. Their livelihoods are gone. They get a divorce, and he paid child support sometimes 3 times the same amount. The woman goes back, hey, you didn't pay me, and they go after him again and pay. He said, look, I paid. Where is all your proof? He doesn't have all the stubs. They make him pay again, especially like in California. I know that. I had that happen to me. So I'm a victim of this. I can tell you now the same thing. I found out later that when I married another woman, she had a child by this other guy, but she made me pay child support for her. And I did not find this out until now, years later, and whatnot. See, so this thing is happening. You got to do something, and you better take your DNA. See, when you marry the sisters inside the United States, I don't care if she's white, black, or whatever, but especially African-American women, because they said they are leading the charge now in this paternity fraud. That's a shame. That's not African. So you should check that out. It's a high rate. So among the lower class Tubab women as well, very I forgot what we used to call them in the United States. The low class, Tubab women, they would do this. They'll deliberately, they're beautiful. They deliberately get hooked up with some brother or some man that's wealthy, but she'll keep her side piece here, get pregnant by him, and then go to the guy here to marry, so he'll be able to support that child. We're starting to see that. Sisters from America aren't eligible or conducive for marriage. This is again, they don't believe this. They don't believe that even the white woman and the black woman are not conducive for marriage. This is the growing trend here side. That's why the white woman, as a general rule, she's not finding husbands here either. Some, but as a general rule, they don't marry them. African sisters are already tailor-made for marriage. And you don't have the paternity fraud that you have running rapid in the United States. These are the pluses that we have to talk about. My recommendation is that it's an individual choice. I would never tell a man he's got to do something. I give you this here for you to do your research. It's up to you. There are upsides to marriage with a local woman. And, in African woman, it's many upsides to this, according to your needs. But here's the problem that I see that I didn't put down in the notes. Many African-American brothers, they lose out here in Africa. They married a local woman, and it's very difficult for them to get an American visa to bring her in the United States. This is one of the drawbacks, because if you have this option where you want to maybe come here 3 or 4 years and leave to go back to the United States, Maybe your African wife doesn't want to leave Ghana, which I don't blame her. And she says, look, I married you because I thought you were going to stay here. I don't want to live in LA. I don't want to live over there. I want to live in Africa. See, that's the drawback, the big drawback, because many brothers want to stay here for a couple of years and that's it. And they want to go back home. In this case, you should not marry you should not be a local African woman. Don't marry her. You go ahead and seek out or stay single. There's a shared American culture. This is a thing too. The African-American woman, they have this history. They have a shared African-American culture. They have a language, styles, and mannerisms that they're accustomed to. This has been handed down. So this is already a plus. Where if you marry an African woman, she doesn't speak our lingo there in the United States. You know, she doesn't speak the Black English, so to speak, and she's not hip to the culture, you see? So that may be a minus in some eyes of the brothers. But there's the upside to her. See, that I aforementioned already, there's an upside to her. But these are some of the things why a brother should marry an African-American woman, even if he comes to Africa, because of the culture. Because maybe they're Tubaab. They can't help that. This is what they are, and this is what they want to be. They want to be Tubaab, Black Americans. So he should marry a woman is to his liking with the same type of mindset. That's his prerogative. And so this is the shared American culture, and this is a plus for them in this aspect. If he marries the African-American woman in Africa, as for me, it could be a psychological lift to be married with a local woman. Because if you marry an African-American woman, let's look at it this way. She has not left the vestiges of what has happened there in the United States. You're going to have a rough time here in Africa. She's going to make your life a living hell. See? And so many brothers say, I don't want to marry the African-American woman. I marry an African woman because she doesn't have that baggage. And I'm tired. I've dealt with these women all my life. I want to change. I'm 35 years old now. I met a sister. It's not like the sisters there I knew back in the hood, okay, so to speak. So it's a psychological lift for the better because he marries the African woman who is already conditioned to be African. She doesn't have this baggage. It's not fault of our sisters that they have this. Okay, it's not their fault. But they have to eliminate this factor when they come to the continent. If they want to keep this factor, they should not come to the continent. This is what I'm saying. We understand those factors, those vestiges that has been laid on you there inside the United States. Oh, yes. No burden. You have had a burden that nobody on this earth has had to carry. It's hard. But sisters, when you come to the African continent, you can't rely on that. You've got to remove that in order for your psychological betterment and for you to be compatible for a man. If you keep this, you cannot find a man inside the United States, and you won't be able to find a man in America. I've seen these sisters now, they're 42, 43. They say, you know, I remember I was so pretty. I was something. I was 20, 21 years old. I had all the men, and I destroyed each one of them. And now she's 42, and her window is closing because the brothers only want to sleep with her, she says. They don't want marriage. They just only want to get in their pants and move on. When she had the opportunity years back, but because she was so pretty and arrogant, now she woke up one day, she's 42 years old, as she said on YouTube, and she has no prospects. See, and this is what's happening a lot. So the liberation of the vestiges of American horrors and story, the sisters can do it. We've seen that. I've seen examples here of that. Okay, so, excuse me. So we know this is possible. We know this is possible, okay? We know this is possible. So, my dear sisters, take this advice and think about what I said here to you today. You guys share this tape. Many of you will be upset, but I'm an elder. I'm giving both angles to the side here. And I'm telling you what's best for you. Now, someone's going to ask a question, well, yeah, why you didn't do this and that? And look, I'm a Muslim. We have different rules. My wife is a Muslim, and she's a Fulani mix as well. She's a Fulani Amazigh mixed African woman. She's lighter skinned than I am. I'm not very light skinned. I'm brown skinned, but she's lighter than I am. She's Fulani Amazigh mixed. My wife is. Somebody will say, well, why you didn't go and wait for the sister from LA? How can I be? Because I'm a Muslim and I already have a wife who's already geared African and Islamic culture, and she speaks the language. I see the advantages of that. Plus, the home life is already made to order. You see, I may not be able to get that with my American sister. And I don't have time for that in Africa, because when you're in Africa, you have to adapt quickly to your environment and you don't want to be held down. So I looked at it from this aspect. She's a good sister, you see? So why not? So what is the stigma our African American women are saying that people like me, we should not marry African? She's a Black woman too. So I don't understand. She's not a two-bob. So, what's up with that? And I'm starting to see African American women talking crazy. It was crazy. Oh yeah, they're Black, but they're not really Black. I don't understand what they mean by this mentality. And this bartering is going back and forth, going after the Nigerian sisters, especially because they married African American men. Why did they do that? For what reason? You didn't want them over there, so somebody else wanted them. So what's the problem? See? So these type of things like this, that's why I'm weighing in it today. I'm giving it from another aspect, not from an emotional aspect, but I'm giving you some proofs here. And what I see, because I've been here 2 decades, almost 2 decades here. See, so I have seen a lot. And that's why I'm giving you the sides of both sides, the pluses to marrying her, the African American woman, and the minuses to marrying her, especially on the continent. So the question can be, can a given African American sister arriving in Africa help her husband to transition from their American vestiges to African culture? At this time, no. I believe 90% of African American women cannot assist their husband in themselves or their husband into transition to African. I don't believe they can. The Africanization, they cannot. They just cannot at this time. Do we have sisters that can do it? Yes. We starting to see some sisters come here with their husbands already Africanized, and she's helped to school her husband, and she's bringing her children up to speed. Her children are speaking the local language, like in the Gambia, speaking Wolof, where the area, Jollof or something. They speak in some language. Okay, they speak in some language, or Mende or Mendinka or something, or Fula. See, wherever area they're at, they have their children already speaking it. They are conducive for you, brother, to marry her, because she's made to order now. She's made to trap. The American vestiges are gone. You see her as an African woman. You see her in the marketplace. Yes, she's African American, but look at her. The way she walks now, she's walking like the African woman. Very elegant, very slow. She's not, you know what I mean? You see her. You see the food that she's getting from there. She's fixing African dishes. You go and speak to the sister, you see the calmness in her voice and the femininity in her. As my teacher said, the men are driven by what? Food and mating. That's what my teacher said to me back in 2002 when I met him. When he said to me in Ghana, he told me, he says, is the man's nature is to eat and mate. So he goes to the sister. He sees what the sister's there getting ready to fix, some not gumbo, fix some dish, African dish where you at. Okay, like here we have tagine, but there in the Gambia they have fufu and stuff like that. So he see her getting ready to fix that. He look at her. He said, you know what? And then maybe he gets to meet her another time. He find her household in order. She's eligible, brother. You get her. You marry her. Irrespective, she came from LA. You marry that sister. She's ready for you. But the other ones are not. She cannot help. If you have an African American woman that cannot help you to transition, don't marry her. Don't marry her, because she'll be a burden. She will not get you transition, and that's a detriment. Why do you come to Africa? You don't want to be African. You want to stay to be African American from LA or from ATL. What is up with that? See? So, brothers and sisters, I talked today long about this, and I don't know what happened in YouTube. It should have came on, but it didn't. I don't know what the story was behind that. I don't know what transpired, but it's okay. Like I said, those I'll find a way. I'll get it introduced, and I'll go from there. There's some technical difficulties here that happened, and I'll figure that out and whatnot. And but I'm gonna get ready to leave you here. It's time for my prayer. So I'm hoping today that I enlighten you on this topic and get you to think about this topic and whatnot. And I will entertain all thoughts, entertain all except uncouth comments. I've had sisters been writing me for the last couple of weeks, and some brothers too, with uneducated comments. I'm not a young child. Don't play that game with me. I'm not no young punk, 20 years old. I'm an elder man. You respect me and you write something. If you disagree, there's no problem. I have no problem with that. You give me your facts. Why you think this? Don't come and start to come after me in such a way like they do back in the hood. I'm gonna throw your comment out. I don't have time for that. Okay, because I'm an elder and a scholar of Islam on top of that. I entertain. I have to be. I'm ordered to be polite. But when you write stuff that some of the sisters been writing the last couple of weeks, and brothers too, I'm not gonna entertain that. But 99.9%, I get beautiful questions from brothers and sisters. Okay, good questions, and they even have thoughts. They say, "Look, I think I disagree with you about Sudan." I entertain that. So I entertain all thoughts except the uncouth comments, okay, and the comments that have no educational value or misleading to our brothers. I'm a can the comment and block the person who wrote it and who sent the question in. I'm not going to tolerate that. Not on my place. I won't tolerate that. See, so that's the way it's got to be, because I want our people here to be educated. They don't need to be, because there's enough negativity as it is. I don't want someone coming on my show or looking at my thing and seeing uncouth comments. They don't need that. There's enough trouble we have as it is. You don't need to be see that in my show. I don't like that. And I'll can that, clean that, sanitize it, and block that person. I don't have time for it. So, okay, brothers and sisters, I hope you got something here. I'll have something in a couple of days, again, now about the Sahel. I wanted to write on this because I've been seeing articles, and I saw sisters who are paternity fraud. I saw sisters who came over to Africa and were literally thrown out because what happened to them and their attitudes. I saw all this. I saw comments being generated in the Nigerian, some of the publications, YouTube, the online publications talking about now, don't marry the African-American woman. I've seen all of this now. It's starting to happen. I wanted to chime in on it because I'm hoping I get the ear of our sisters, that they will listen and say, please, sister, when you come here, leave those vestiges back there. Come here and adapt to be in Gambia. If you want to come to Tanzania, you be Tanzanian. You want to go to Rwanda, be like the sisters there. Go and get friendship with a good sister who can teach you things so you can adapt. Okay, this is what my recommendation to you. If you're going to say, look, I'm going to stay this way, I'm still going to talk to the man in this way, I'm still going to do this the way I did back in LA, don't come here. Don't come here, because you're not going to be welcomed here, and your time is going to be not spent very well. As you can see, many of them now, they have no prospects. The sisters don't want to be around them. The brothers don't want to marry them, and they're miserable. They got to be. I don't know how they can stand that. Okay, my brothers and sisters, I'll leave you with that. Anzurama, wassalamu alaikum, rahmatullahi wabarakatuh.